Most people think that dinosaurs were always these giant, unstoppable monsters that ruled the planet right from the start. When we picture dinosaurs, we see Tyrannosaurus rex, massive, powerful, sitting at the top of the food chain, or the enormous Diplodocus stretching up into the trees. But that's not how it actually began. In this video, I'm going to take you back 252 million years to the Triassic period, and I'm going to show you something that might surprise you. The very first dinosaurs were not giants at all. They were small, vulnerable creatures barely clinging to survival in an incredibly hostile world. So the big question is, how did these humble, small animals eventually rise to dominate the Earth for over 135 million years? Stick with me as we uncover the real story. But before we meet those early dinosaurs, we first need to understand just how brutal and unforgiving their world really was. Around 252 million years ago, Earth experienced the Permian extinction, the most catastrophic mass extinction event in its entire history. Scientists estimate that more than 90% of all marine species and about 70% of land species were wiped out. It was a disaster so complete that it took millions of years for life to even begin recovering. And after the catastrophe, the Triassic period began. Now, imagine you're a small animal trying to survive in this newly reshaped world. What would you actually face? Picture a single supercontinent called Pangaea. There were no polar ice caps, no lush green forests like we often imagine. Instead, vast inland deserts stretched for thousands of miles. Daytime temperatures regularly soared above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees Celsius, and in some regions, it was even hotter. The air itself was thick with carbon dioxide, making it difficult to breathe, while oxygen levels were much lower than they are today. And it wasn't just hot, it was violently unstable. Massive volcanic eruptions continued for hundreds of thousands of years, releasing more greenhouse gases and poisoning the atmosphere. So here's the question. How could anything survive when even the air seemed to be working against you? Among them, creatures like Plateosaurus were absolute monsters. These 6 to 7 meter long predators could stand and run on 2 legs with powerful jaws and sharp teeth designed for crushing bone. Alongside them were other Rausuchians and Phytosaurs, large, armored, crocodile-like hunters that dominated the rivers and floodplains. These were the formidable predators that early dinosaurs had to contend with throughout the Triassic period. Plant life was sparse. You wouldn't see thick jungles, but rather scattered ferns, conifers, and tough seed plants that could barely survive the harsh, dry conditions. This was not a forgiving world. This was not a world for the weak. It was nature's ultimate testing ground, a brutal forge that would separate the survivors from the doomed. Only those with the right adaptations, the right luck, or the right combination of both would make it through. So let's meet the very first character in this story, a creature that many scientists believe may have been the earliest true dinosaur we know of. Its name is Nyasasaurus parringtoni. Keep in mind the brutal world we just talked about, the scorching heat, the vast deserts of Pangaea, the thin oxygen, and the constant threat from much larger predators. This is the exact environment Nyasasaurus had to survive in. Now I have to be honest with you. We don't have a complete skeleton of this animal. In fact, we only have a handful of bones, a partial upper arm bone, some vertebrae from the backbone, and a few other fragments. That's all we have. Yet these few pieces tell us something truly remarkable. This animal lived around 243 million years ago in what is now Tanzania in East Africa. Scientists estimate it was roughly 6 to 10 feet long, about the size of a large dog or a small deer. Definitely not the giant monster most people picture when they think of dinosaurs. But here's what makes Nyasasaurus so special. The structure of its upper arm bone and hip region shows clear signs of an erect posture. Its legs were positioned directly under its body, instead of sprawling out to the sides like most reptiles at that time. In a hot, dry environment where every drop of energy mattered, this feature would have helped it move more efficiently, breathe better while active, and conserve strength. All critical advantages for surviving in the harsh Triassic conditions. So here's the big question. Was Nyasasaurus the very first dinosaur? Many paleontologists consider it a strong candidate for the oldest known dinosaur, or at least the closest relative to the common ancestor of all dinosaurs. If that's true, then the dinosaur lineage appeared on the scene earlier than we once thought, possibly by as much as 10 to 15 million years. I find this part of the story fascinating. It suggests that dinosaurs didn't suddenly explode into existence. Instead, they started out quietly as small, unassuming animals, living in the shadows of much larger and more powerful predators like Plateosaurus. They weren't trying to rule the world yet. They were simply trying to survive in one of the toughest environments Earth has ever produced. And that to me makes their eventual rise even more impressive. These early pioneers weren't born as kings. They had to earn their future dominance one careful, adaptive step at a time. Fast forward about 10 to 15 million years, and we begin to see more advanced early dinosaurs appearing in what is now Argentina in South America. Two of the most important examples from this period are Herrerasaurus and Eoraptor. Let's start with Herrerasaurus. This was a significantly more formidable animal than Nyasasaurus. It grew up to about 16 feet long, or roughly 5 meters, and weighed around 700 to 800 pounds. It walked on 2 strong legs, had a long tail for balance, and possessed sharp, curved claws on its hands, especially on its thumbs. And its teeth were serrated like steak knives, perfect for slicing through flesh. Now imagine this creature living in that same harsh Triassic landscape we talked about earlier. Extreme heat, scarce water, and powerful crocodile-like predators like Plateosaurus still dominating the land. Here's an interesting thought experiment. Suppose you placed a Herrerasaurus directly next to a Plateosaurus, one of the top predators of that time. Who would have the advantage? Many people would assume the larger, heavier Postosuchus would win easily, but that's not necessarily true. Herrerasaurus was faster, more agile, and had a more efficient upright stance. In a real hunt or confrontation, speed and quickness often mattered more than raw size in that unstable environment. Then we have Eoraptor, a much smaller cousin that lived in the same region at roughly the same time. Eoraptor was only about 3 feet long, roughly the size of a large house cat. What makes it special is its teeth. Some were sharp and pointed for eating meat, while others were leaf-shaped for processing plant. This tells us it was an omnivore, an opportunistic eater that could survive on whatever food was available. In a world where food sources could suddenly disappear due to drought or climate swings, this flexibility was a huge advantage. While many specialized predators might starve when their prey became scarce, Eoraptor could adapt and keep going. What I find really striking about both of these animals is that they weren't dominant yet. They were still living in the shadows of the much larger Pseudosuchians. But they already possessed key traits that would later define the success of dinosaurs: efficient upright posture, speed, and the ability to adapt to changing conditions. These weren't the kings of the Triassic, but they were laying the foundation for what dinosaurs would eventually become. Building on what we saw with Herrerasaurus and Eoraptor, the dinosaur story takes another important step forward, around 225 million years ago. This is when we meet a creature that gives us our first real glimpse into how dinosaurs began to work together: Coelophysis. Coelophysis was a lightly built, two-legged theropod dinosaur. Adults typically measured about 6 to 10 feet long and weighed only 40 to 60 pounds, roughly the size of a large coyote or a small deer. It had a long, slender neck, sharp, curved teeth, and powerful hind legs that made it an exceptionally fast runner. While it wasn't the biggest predator of its time, it was highly efficient and agile. What truly sets Coelophysis apart is the extraordinary evidence we have of its behavior. In the late 1800s, and again in the 1940s, paleontologists discovered an incredible fossil site at Ghost Ranch in New Mexico. Hundreds of Coelophysis individuals were found buried together: adults, juveniles, and even some very young specimens, all in the same location. This remarkable discovery strongly suggests that Coelophysis lived in groups or packs. Rather than hunting or surviving alone like many earlier reptiles, they appear to have moved and hunted together. In the harsh, unpredictable Triassic environment, with its extreme droughts and scattered food sources, this kind of social cooperation would have been a game-changing advantage. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a dry riverbed during the Triassic. A small herd of Coelophysis spots a group of prey animals. Instead of each one attacking individually, they coordinate their movements, some flushing the prey out, while others cut off escape routes. This level of teamwork allowed them to tackle larger targets and survive periods when food was scarce. There was one more thing that really surprised me. Some of the fossils at Ghost Ranch show smaller Coelophysis bones inside the stomachs of larger ones. This has led scientists to believe they may have occasionally practiced cannibalism during times of extreme hunger. It shows just how tough life was. Even these early dinosaurs sometimes had to make difficult choices to stay alive. With Coelophysis, we see the beginning of something much more powerful: social behavior and group cooperation. This was the key moment when dinosaurs stopped just trying to survive as individuals and began developing strategies that would later help them dominate entire ecosystems. The ability to work together gave them a major edge over many of the larger but more solitary pseudosuchian predators around them. These weren't yet the giant dinosaurs we all recognize, but they were becoming far more sophisticated than most people realize. While Coelophysis and its relatives were mastering the art of group hunting in the Triassic, another major chapter in dinosaur evolution was quietly beginning. Just a few million years later, we start seeing a completely different kind of dinosaur emerge. This group is known as the sauropodomorphs, and the most famous early member is Plateosaurus. Plateosaurus was a significant leap in size compared to everything we've talked about so far. Adults commonly reached 25 to 33 feet in length, that's 8 to 10 meters, and could weigh as much as 2 to 4 tons. It had a long, graceful neck, a small head, and a bulky body. One of its most interesting features is that it could walk on either 2 legs or all 4. Giving it flexibility depending on whether it needed speed or stability while feeding. Unlike the meat-eating or omnivorous dinosaurs before it, Plateosaurus was primarily a herbivore. It used its long neck to reach vegetation that other animals couldn't access, and its teeth were shaped for stripping leaves and processing tough plant material. But Plateosaurus wasn't alone. During this same period, other early sauropodomorphs were appearing across different parts of Pangaea. Species like Melanosaurus, Coloratosaurus, and Saturnalia show us that this lineage was already beginning to experiment with larger body sizes and different feeding strategies. Some were still relatively small, while others were pushing the limits of how large a land animal could grow at that time. Let's pause for a moment and consider what this really means. In a relatively short window of geological time, just a few million years, we go from small, fast predators like Coelophysis to large plant-eating dinosaurs like Plateosaurus. This rapid diversification is remarkable. These early giants were testing the boundaries. They were developing longer necks, bigger bodies, and more efficient digestive systems. These adaptations would later be refined and amplified in the truly massive sauropods of the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods, animals like Brachiosaurus and Argentinosaurus. To me, this is one of the most exciting turning points in the dinosaur story. It shows that dinosaurs weren't just surviving, they were evolving in multiple directions at once. From agile hunters to large herbivores, they were filling different ecological roles and preparing for long-term success. Only a short time earlier, they were small shadows hiding from crocodile-like giants. Now they were beginning to grow into something much bigger, both literally and figuratively. This was the first clear step on the road that would eventually lead to the age of the dinosaur giants. While Plateosaurus and its relatives were pushing the limits of size as plant eaters, many other early dinosaurs were continuing to evolve in different directions across Pangaea. Although they are less famous species, like Styracosaurus liliensternus, Guibosaurus and Chindosaurus give us a much fuller picture of how diverse and adaptable dinosaurs had already become by the late Triassic. Styracosaurus, discovered in Brazil, was a small but athletic predator, measuring around 8 to 10 feet long. Liliensternus, found in what is now Germany, grew larger up to 16 feet and was a fast, slender hunter. Guibosaurus, also from Brazil, was smaller and more lightly built, while Chindosaurus from North America was another nimble carnivore that lived alongside some of the last large pseudosuchians. I simulated situations with these animals in my mind, and what surprises me is how similar their basic body plan was, despite living in different parts of the world. All of them shared several key advantages that set them apart from most other reptiles of the Triassic. First, they had strong hind legs positioned directly beneath their bodies, the classic upright posture we associate with dinosaurs. This allowed them to move more efficiently and run faster than the sprawling reptiles around them. Second, evidence from their bones suggests they had a more advanced respiratory system, likely including air sacs similar to those found in modern birds. This would have helped them breathe more effectively, especially important in the hot, oxygen-poor environments of Pangaea. Suppose the environment changed suddenly, a long drought, a flood, or a shift in available prey. These dinosaurs were better equipped to handle those changes than many of their competitors. Their combination of speed, efficiency, and adaptability gave them a real edge. What fascinates me most about this period is the quiet explosion of variety. Within just a few million years, we see small hunters, medium-sized predators, and large herbivores all appearing. Dinosaurs weren't dominating yet, but they were clearly positioning themselves as one of the most versatile groups on the planet. By the end of the Triassic, these early pioneers had developed the fundamental tools, both physical and behavioral, that would allow their descendants to survive the next great extinction and eventually inherit the Earth. From the mysterious Nyasasaurus to the pack-hunting Coelophysis, and from the long-necked Plateosaurus to these lesser-known but important species, we've watched the first dinosaurs take their very first steps. So by the end of the Triassic, dinosaurs had spread across much of Pangaea. And then everything changed. Around 201 million years ago, Earth was struck by another global crisis. As Pangaea began to break apart, enormous cracks opened across the supercontinent. Through these fractures, vast quantities of magma erupted onto the surface. This event is known today as the formation of the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province. These eruptions were unlike anything humans have ever witnessed. Over hundreds of thousands of years, millions of cubic kilometers of lava flooded across enormous regions of the planet. At the same time, massive amounts of carbon dioxide and other gases were released into the atmosphere. The consequences were severe. Global temperatures rose rapidly. Weather patterns became increasingly unstable. Ecosystems that had already spent millions of years adapting to Triassic conditions suddenly faced a new environmental shock. Scientists call this event the End-Triassic mass extinction. Although it was not as devastating as the catastrophe that ended the Permian period, it was still one of the 5 largest mass extinctions in Earth's history. Many groups of animals disappeared forever. Numerous large pseudosuchians, including many of the dominant crocodile-line archosaurs that had ruled Triassic landscapes for tens of millions of years, disappeared from the fossil record. Some Triassic dinosaurs disappeared as the ecosystems around them collapsed. Animals such as Coelophysis, Plateosaurus, and several other late Triassic dinosaur species vanished from the fossil record around this time. However, other dinosaur groups were more fortunate and survived. Their descendants continued to thrive into the Jurassic period. Within a relatively short geological period after the extinction, dinosaurs expanded into many of the vacant niches left behind by the animals that had disappeared. Predatory dinosaurs became more common. Herbivorous dinosaurs increased in size and diversity. Entire ecosystems began reorganizing around them. By the beginning of the Jurassic period, the world looked very different from the one that Nyasasaurus had inhabited tens of millions of years earlier. The small survivors we followed throughout this story were no longer living in the shadows. For the first time, dinosaurs had become the dominant large land animals on Earth. From tiny, vulnerable creatures scrambling to survive in the scorching deserts of the Triassic, dinosaurs rose to become the dominant rulers of our planet for more than 135 million years. Their story is not one of instant power or overwhelming strength. It's a story of resilience, remarkable adaptability, and the ability to seize opportunity in the face of disaster. What strikes me most is this: the dinosaurs didn't start as kings. They earned their kingdom through persistence and intelligence in one of the harshest environments Earth has ever seen. And perhaps, in our own rapidly changing world today, there's a valuable lesson in that. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey back in time, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes.